games.
On your mark. Get set.
At which he won 14 gold medals. Often described as ignorant.
It's pretty obvious why you're here. You want a Spiritborn build. But despite this, there are a few select gamers out there that want to build for the other classes as well. Why? No idea. Perhaps they spent all of their hard-earned money on a big titty OnlyFans streamer or hemorrhoid ointment. Either way, I'm making this video for all the D4 gamers out there. One top-leveling build for each class in the new season. And while the Spiritborn is way stronger than all the classes in Endgame, all the classes in the game actually has one damn solid leveling build. And I've been using all of these myself, meaning they are officially Paragaming approved. Now, it's pretty goddamn useless of me to make an hour-long video covering each of the builds in detail, so I'm only making it half an hour. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll show the builds, talk about the necessary things you need to know to play the build along with how to progress into the end game, and then kindly ask you to fuck off. But first off, let me show you the planners. For a few of them, you have several versions. Ask me which one you should look at. I dare you. On top of that, you'll see masterworking marked in some of the planners. Wait, what? In a leveling build? Are you drunk, Mr. Paragaming? Yes, I'm drunk as shit, but it's to show the most important stat, that's all. You can ignore that if you want. Alright, that's the disclaimer. Let's get started, homies. First out is the Flurry Rogue. Now, this build is an absolute fucking gem when it comes to leveling, and it's also decent in the end game. So how does this bad boy work? Well, shit, son, it's easy as hell. You press Flurry and you delete. This skill has been getting humongous amounts of buffs the latest couple of seasons, and it's now insanely overtuned early game. Just lovely. Now, here's the thing though. Playing within a site makes Flurry cost 0 energy and just simply makes the build way more fun compared to combo points, for example. Alright, so why are we using Puncture then, a basic skill? Well, honestly, it's only used for bossing, and when you sometimes run out of energy. You should only run out when you can't hit the inner sight targets, but it can happen early on. So it's a solid backup, but feel free to throw it in the trash as you approach level 50 or so. Other than spamming Flurry though, we're also utilizing Shadow Imbuement. You'll pump this button as frequently as possible for big AoE damage. You'll also use it for energy, and as long as enemies explode, so will you, and gain unlimited resources. When it comes to the other skills, that's easy peasy. Dash is used solely for mobility, Shadow Step is used for mobility, along with Unstoppable, and you have Dark Shroud as to not hecking die El Mao. Alright, let's check out the gear and aspects. All of these are simply here to show what stats and aspects will benefit you the most, as you'll keep replacing your items. But there is one aspect that will benefit you more than the others, and that is aspect of encircling blades, allowing you to hit all enemies around you. You can get it in Forsaken Quarry, imprint it on an amulet, and then just keep that amulet for as long as you want. Other than that though, you'll just keep an eye out for gear equipment with the other aspects on and use them while leveling. When it comes to the mercenary, you want to use Subo as your main guy, as he's completely broken. And to make it easy for you, you'll be using the same mercenary setup for all the builds in this video. Seeker grants you map hack, so you'll use it on every character. He also marks enemies, allowing you to gain resources back. You then go for wire trap, so you can grab ready at hand for movement speed, and cover fire, which is completely bonkers as it boosts your crit damage by 25%. Hell yeah. As reinforcement, we're then grabbing Raha and his Bastion skill, as it grants us some well-needed invulnerability. You can set it to cast on whatever skill you prefer. Just know that the skill has a 30 seconds cooldown. When it comes to the skill tree, Ignore the leveling path for fuck's sake. You'll level too fast to give a damn, and I haven't spent much time on it either. You just want to progress downwards, pick up all of the skills along with the key passive, and then go for the passives. We start out with Puncture for vulnerability and resources, and max out Flurry for big damn. You also have some passives here that you'll grab later, where Siphoning Strikes is the most important one to keep you alive. After that, head for the agility skills, pick up some lovely mobility and big damage multipliers. In the subterfuge tree, you have Dark Shroud for defensives, along with some damage passives here. Shadow Imbuement is massively important as to delete entire rooms with AoE, and consuming shadows will fill up your energy each time Shadow Imbuement kills shit. After that, we go all the way down to the key passive, where Momentum is godly for leveling. Seeing as Puncture skills is a marksman's skill, it will remove one stack each time you use it. Therefore, spam the hell out of the Flurry skill and keep as many stacks as possible because it grants you energy, damage reduction, movement speed, and a buttload of damage. Just lovely. When you reach level 60, I'd recommend swapping to either the Uber version here or another endgame build, because if you enjoy Flurry, then you'll want to transition into something like this. Just be aware, Flurry is by no means the best rogue build in the game when it comes to the endgame, but it's easy to set up and start farming gear for the other builds. Either way, assuming you want to keep blasting Flurry, then swap to the Uber version and start filling out the Paragon boards. The prio here is to just grab the glyphs and legendary nodes first as you're leveling up your Paragon points, and then start picking up the rare nodes. The strongest legendary nodes are No Witnesses, which you'll gain from the rune system whenever you get a Petrify off, Exploit Weakness, Cheap Shot, and Tricks of the Trade. Other than that, just start filling out the Paragons, and you're good to go. Alright, and next we have the reason you're probably here. The Spirit Kuma. For leveling, I'm going to use the Ulfinator Thorns build as it's looking like some serious god-tier fun. As it's a completely new class, and you're probably dogshit at the game, let's take this one slowly. And why am I picking this build for you? Well, damn, it's clean, it's easy, and it's insanely tanky. A perfect starter build for all the new Spirit Kuma gamers. For generating vigor, which is the Spirit Kuma resource, you have Rock Splitter. This is used due to it generating thorns, as that will be our main source of damage. Thorns, that is. As spender, we have Rake. This is used to generate ferocity stacks, which is another type of resource which grants attack speed. And attack speed is going to be important, I'll explain why soon. For next skill, we have Ravager. This grants us additional ferocity stacks along with some additional damage. Armored Hide, a must-have for the big dick thorns enjoyers, as there's a skill passive that increases thorns via this. We have the Seeker, which is our ultimate for big damn, crowd control, and vulnerable. And finally, Toxic Skin, which also has a passive that increases thorns. Alright, so that's the skills. Now to deal even more thorns damage, we have the Spirit Hall. We grab Harambe for this, as it will make all of our skills into Gorilla skills and makes them deal big hecking thorns damage. We also go for the double Harambe playstyle to gain Resolve, which is the third Spirit Kuma resource and just simply grants us damage reduction per stack of Resolve. Easy peasy. When it comes to the gameplay, you're just pressing all cooldowns when they're up, followed by swapping between Rock Splitter and Rake. That's what makes the build lovely. It's just that damn easy. Alright, let's check out the aspects that you're looking for. Ulf has made an endgame version for this, and you don't really need to give a shit about the stats on your gear. Rather just focus on getting to endgame and swap to the endgame version of the build, or grab any of the other insane Spirit Kuma builds. Either way, there are a few aspects that you want to focus on while leveling. The two main ones are Tormentor's aspect and Bristleback's aspect. You can get both of these in Nahantu dungeons, and I recommend running over there to grab them. Just search for the aspects in the Codex of Power and you will see them on the map. It will be worth it. Heading into the skill tree, we rock the Rock Splitter, pun intended, along with enhanced and accelerated Rock Splitter for the Thorns. After that, we head for Rake, which grants us Ferocity stacks. And again, Ferocity stacks simply means attack speed. We also grab Follow Through here for Big Dam. Next, we pick up some passives for damage, along with Ravager for the damage as well, and Toxic Skin to poison enemies, along with triggering more Thorns. Lovely. Next, we grab a Haramba skill called Armored Hide. This then grants Block Chance, which, if you remember, deals Thorns damage whenever we block or dodge attacks via the Bristleback aspect. We also have a bit of additional damage and damage reduction here. The same goes for the Potency skills, but we also have 30% damage bonus from our Jaguar skills here as well. We don't go for the crit damage though, because remember, Thorns can't crit. We then grab Seeker, which is insanely strong for leveling, as it's both crowd control and vulnerability in a large radius. It also has 3 charges, meaning we can keep up all of these damage bonuses right here. And finally, the key passive. Here we go for Adaptive Stances, which generates different bonuses depending on what skill you're using, along with a buttload of core stats. Just lovely. For the Mercenary, you're going for the same setup as for the Rogue, with the exception of using loaded munitions as to make enemies vulnerable instead, since we can't use the crit damage. And finally, the Paragons. Here I recommend checking out the endgame version. You should find everything you need there. Nicely done, friends. Let's head into Woodchopper territory and see what he has going for him. Funnily enough, I made this build all the way back in Season 0, and it has since then reigned supreme as a top 3 leveling build each season. But suddenly, out of nowhere, it received a quadrupling of its damage heading in Season 5, and it hasn't changed since we last saw it. Pretty solid. So, how does this one work then? Well shit, it's quite beautiful really. For starters, it's obviously a landslide build, meaning all the damage we do is from landslides. To spawn them, we have the landslide button itself, but also Poison Creeper along with Trample. And how does that work? Well, Poison Creeper spawns landslides via the subterranean aspect, and Trample spawns them via the Trampled Earth aspect. These skills does, however, have a long goddamn cooldown, so we need to reset them somehow. This is done with ease using the Pack Leader Spirit Boon along with the Symbiotic aspect. And the better gear you get, the more resets you will get. You should be able to spam them with close to 0 cooldown. This build is also excellent transitioning into the endgame. Seeing as Landslide is looking to be the best Druid build, I can recommend transitioning into a pure Bear Slider build. When it comes to the other skills, we're using Wind Shear for Spirit along with movement speed. Bulwark generates a humongous barrier and unstoppable, and should make us nearly immortal. Cyclone Armor is used for damage reduction, vulnerable, and an additional way of gaining cooldown reduction via the Symbiotic aspect. More on that later. But first, let's see what you need to start rocking the build. As with the other builds, you don't need shit to get started. But there are 4 key aspects. Subterranean to gain landslides from the Poison Creepers, the Symbiotic aspect to reset our cooldowns. This is only useful when we got the key passive though. Trampled Earth to make our Trample spawn landslides and turn it into an Earth skill. And Aftershock to double our landslides. All the other aspects are merely used to buff our damage or defensives. For the skill tree, what you need to understand is the key passive, Nature's Fury. We're rocking a mix of earth and storm skills here, meaning we trigger free skills all the time. This allows us to use a buttload of different multipliers and aspects, along with resetting our cooldowns with the symbiotic aspect. And for the Paragons, you want to transition into the Bear Slide build at 60. Fortunately for us, Ace of Spades already has a great Bear Slider build. I'll link it in the description as well. Alright, that's the fat Woodchopper, aka the budget Spiritborn. And now it's time for another class, the shit-smearing barbarian. For this one, the double swing titty twister is reigning supreme yet another season. Once up and running, it's one of the absolute best leveling builds. It's also possible to swap to Whirlwind once you hit max level and got some movement speed on your gear. Or just keep blasting my man. And how does this work then? Well, that's pretty easy to understand. We spawn tornadoes and they blow shit up. This is done via two ways. Via double swing and fury generation. Meaning we want to hit double swing quickly and also generate a buttload of fury. When it comes to fury generation, we are rocking lunging strike. Not only does this generate fury, but also berserking and a free teleport, making us fast as fuck boy. On top of that, we either go double shout for fury and damage, or we replace charge and go triple shout. I typically run charge for the mobility early game and swap to challenging shout as soon as I have my aspects, but that's up to you, my man or woman. Either way, you finish off with Wrath of the Berserker for Big Damn. For the aspects, there are three you are looking for. The Windlasher aspect, to shoot out tornadoes out of your bumhole whenever you spam double swing. The Devilish aspect, to generate tornadoes via fury generation. And finally Fierce Winds, to spawn tornadoes whenever you start shouting. All of the other aspects are there for defensives and damage. For the skill tree, there is nothing of importance other than that lunging strike is your berserking generator along with Warcry. And as you're in the end game, you're ditching lunging strike and will need another berserking generator such as the anger management aspect. And for the Paragons, you can keep playing this build for as long as you want to. I have an endgame version in the same planner here in case you want to keep swinging your dick around with double swing. Otherwise, I recommend Whirlwind. For the Paragons, I'm using Challenger and Decimator for Big Damn and Strength. Disembowel is used to reset cooldowns, and we go for Blood Rage for the additional 30% damage. You'll get this capped with damage while berserking, but that's mainly done in endgame. You'll also get help with that from the ambidextrous glyph right here. Flawless Technique grants some crit chance, and we have Marshal to reset our cooldowns. And for the final board and glyph, we have Carnage and Exploit to grant Vulnerable. Here I have it as 4th glyph, but it doesn't really matter if it's 4th or 5th. Alright, so that was the shit smearer. The Paragon Planner was a bit bugged as of recording this video, as you may see, but it will be fully up to date as Season 6 launches. What does the Necro has going for it then? Well, shit, quite a bit. I already created a leveling along with mid-game build for the Cringe Lords, and it has since then received humongous fucking buffs this season, making it excellent in both early and endgame. Now, the natural transition for this build is a pure minion build, which is roughly A tier. The best build is looking to be Boner Spirit as per usual, but I don't recommend the Boner builds unless you're max level and have all your uniques and aspects. So just go minions for now, buddy. So, how does this build work? Well, damn, it's easier to understand than any other. Minions are just overtuned. In early game, that is, in the end game, they're perfectly balanced. On top of that, Siva is the highest damage skill the Necro has in the early game. Now, it could be argued that Blood Surge is better in the earliest of levels, so why are we not rocking that? Well, shit, it's due to it being... well, shit. In the later stages of leveling, Blood Surge just feels god-awful to play. For For the playstyle, you're using Hemorrhage for Essence, and you're spending the Essence via Sever. For the other skills, you're looking to use Corpse Tendril whenever it is available to pull in enemies and drop the Golem cooldown on them for the AoE damage. Corpse Explosion is also used here, which you should be using for both generating Essence as well as blasting down events quickly, and then of course, raise Skeletons to gain a bunch of buddies to play with. As for the aspects, there is not a single important aspect that is needed here, and it will make it rather simple for you. Get an aspect, slap it on, and you'll get a substantial buff. The Book of the Dead is rather important though. First out, you will get a buttload of extra corpses from your Reapers. The Skeletal Mages are there both to buff you and to deal damage, and then you have two options for your big boy Golem. The Iron Golem is strong for damage, but I'm still recommending the Blood Golem. This is due to it granting us a massive heal. For the skill tree, this build has the most brain-dead skills possible, meaning that you just follow the skill tree all the way down to the key passive and enjoy your easy trip to level 60. Kalen's Edict also got a substantial buff this season, making it not fucking useless. For the Paragons, you're picking up Control for massive damage, followed by Cult Leader, which you want to get capped via attack speed, and Eliminator to boost your intelligence as to become real smart. Next we have Flesh Eater for damage, and Essence for, damage. There's nothing interesting happening in the Paragon boards, unfortunately. We just go for more damage via Frailty, which you'll keep up via Decrepify and the Golem Glyph. You then have Hulking Monstrosity, which is coincidentally also what your wife calls my, And finally, we slap on the final glyph for some additional damage. Alright, enough of the neckbeard cringe lords. Let's check out one of our favorite classes, the Sorcerer. This class has a gazillion of S-tier leveling builds. My favorite, however, is the Ice Shard build, combined with Blizzard. And why would you want to combine those two? Well, shit. Due to us freezing enemies via Blizzard, we can shoot out a buttload of ice shards all the way from where the sun don't shine. But there is an additional reason I'm recommending this as a leveling build. And that's due to how easy it is to transition into the best mid-game build. Blizzard. It will be the exact same playstyle, just that you're slapping on a few ice spike aspects instead. I'd recommend doing this around level 40 or 50, just as you're done with the campaign. And why are we not playing Blizzard already from the start? Well, damn, my man. Because the glacial aspect, the one making the endgame Blizzard build a viable option, relies heavily on the aspect roll. So if you're unlucky, you get fucked. But once you have a decent aspect and enough mana regen, you'll blast, no doubt. Just drop a few blizzards and run away. For the earliest of levels, we are relying entirely on using ice shards for damage and arc lash when we are out of mana. And that's the main issue of most sorcerer builds, mana. Fortunately though, we'll solve that shit with ease as we've gotten a few levels. We're then grabbing the Ice Shards enchantment, which shoots out ice shards whenever we freeze enemies. And we are freezing them both via Frost Novas and via the Blizzard Chills. It's just that easy, folks. Single target, and on bosses though, you'll still need to spam some ice shards. But when mobbing, you're basically just running around dropping blizzards. When it comes to the other skills, they are merely used for defensives and big damn. Alright, and what about the aspects? Well, there are a few important ones. The most important one being the piercing cold aspect. This one is so good, in fact, that I recommend dropping a nuke on Dead Man's Dredge and getting it as soon as possible. For mana and damage, there are three great aspects here. First out, Frozen Memories, which grants us more avalanche along with the Umbral aspect, which generates infinite mana as we're spamming Blizzard, and Prodigy, which generates mana whenever we press buttons. the skill tree you can read on your spare time, as it's nothing of importance other than avalanche. Seeing as Blizzard doesn't actually do any damage, you want to use the avalanches on your ice shards ideally. But this is only important on the bosses. For the Paragons, I'm linking Lurkin's endgame Blizzard build because he's just an absolute god at the Sorcerer class. And that, my friends, is all for me. You're free to fuck off now.